Let's walk through a typical scenario for a team getting started using Tesults. We'll talk about test case management, release checklists, and test automation reporting and analysis. Consider a CTO, VP of engineering, engineering manager, product manager, or manager, technical lead, or software engineer with a problem. They're finding that they need a way to manage test cases and test automation reporting for their team. They also need a way to maintain a runbook for quality assurance for every release. They also need a way to be notified about issues pre- and post-release. They find Tesults and they have a solution to their problem. Now consider that this organization is developing a web application, an iOS app and an Android app, and 12 services, 6 of which are various API services for the front-end clients, and 6 that are others for back-end processes such as for data ingestion. Each of the 3 front-end applications have unit tests. The web application also has integration tests with the services and end-to-end UI tests. The iOS and Android apps do not have end-to-end tests yet, but there is a plan to introduce them in the future. For now, there are lists of these test cases stored in various spreadsheets, and a subset of these tests are run for each release. The services all have unit tests, integration tests, and end-to-end tests. The tests run across 4 environments: dev, test staging, and prod. That's a lot of tests for a lot of different systems, and it's hard to keep track of them all and their results. The engineering organization has some release run blocks that have been written, and these are generally working well, but there is a sense of unease on each release cycle with respect to quality assurance, knowing what has to be done and what needs to be checked to be sure that front-end clients or services are ready to deploy to production. There have also been some production fires in the past that have made rollbacks or hot fixes necessary, and in some cases, customers discovered some of those issues. Let's learn how to consolidate all test results reporting, manual QA notifications, and release checklists with Tesults to get this organization on the way to releasing high-quality software every time. We'll talk about how to handle the pre-release process first with test automation reporting and manual test case management. Then we'll talk about how to manage the release process, and finally, how to monitor and handle observability post-release. The first thing that needs to be done is for one Tesults project to be created and named after the company or organization. Next, it's time to set up test automation reporting. Let's review the test cases that exist for the organization. Given this table, there are 18 test jobs for the services and 7 for the front, for a total of 25. There are 4 environments: dev, test, staging, and prod. This means we need potentially 100 targets, which is 4 times 25, and it can be useful to name the test jobs after the name of the app or the service, the type of test, and environment. So, for example, web unit dev, web integration dev, web end-to-end dev, iOS unit dev, iOS integration dev, iOS end-to-end dev, and so on, all the way to Service 6 end-to-end prod. Each of the targets that are created have a token that should be copied and saved within your test systems or continuous integration system. In this case, the team is using a combination of the Playwright test framework for the web XT test for iOS, Unit, and Android, and a combination of Jest and Postman for the services test. On Tesults.com, the documentation section includes instructions for integrating with each of these test frameworks, and it's easy. Let's look at the 2 steps required to report results from Playwright. The instructions are slightly different depending on whether the team is using the .NET, Python, Java, or Node.js version. Let's assume it's Node.js in this case. It's this straightforward to set up. Install the Playwright Tesults reporter using the command npm install Playwright Tesults reporter save. Take the target token and place it in the playwright.conf.js file like this. After this, the test can be run as normal, and the test results data will be transmitted to Tesults for reporting and analysis. All test framework integrations are this easy to use and require no changes to existing tests and no other configuration. It won't take any time at all to have set up reporting or the entire suite of automated tests. Reviewing the test cases that exist for the organization again, there are manual test cases stored in various spreadsheets for the web, iOS, and Android apps. The team can use the list feature in Tesults to get their test cases stored as test lists to be used as test runs for every release and make test cases easily accessible, visible, and able to be edited by team members. Test cases can be either manually created or automatically imported from spreadsheets. Once test cases are being managed as test lists within Tesults, at the time of testing, the team can create a test run and import test cases from lists, allocate test cases to be run by members or other team members, mark test cases as completed as they are proceeding, and archive the test run for audit purposes when testing is complete. Every time there is a release to be tested, a new test run can be created from the stored test list, making manual test run test case management simple and straightforward. Now consider runbooks for a release. These consist of keeping track of tasks or items to perform for a release. For example, deployments, documentation updates, customer support notifications, and more, along with ensuring test results are what they need to be across all relevant front-end clients and back-end services, and in the appropriate environment, whether they are manual or automated tests. With Tesults, the team can make every release well-planned and smooth using the release checklist feature. A release checklist contains a list of all the automated and manual test runs that need to pass and all other tasks related to release, whether it's a document update or other process that needs to be completed. It's all in one easy release checklist that can be checked off. Once the release checklist is complete, the team knows they are ready to release with confidence. Release checklists can be used every time and archived for audit purposes after each release. Now that the team has set up the targets, integrated test automation, reporting, and analysis, is handling test management of manual test runs with lists, and is using release checklists to manage the entire release process, let's talk about what happens after this pre-release setup and during the release. Now that the procedure at release time is easy, open a release checklist and check off the items one by one. Are all of the automated test results referenced on the release checklist correctly in terms of status and outcome? Are all of the manual test runs completed and have appropriate status and outcomes? Have all of the other items been completed? If so, all of the items on the release checklist can be marked off. Then you can archive the release checklist and you're done. We want to ensure services continue to run successfully post-release. In the prod environments, a subset of the tests running in pre-release environments can be run periodically as health checks. Tesults notifications can be enabled to trigger incidents or notify specific teams if there are any failures, and automatically resolve incidents should there be any recovery. This is quick and easy to set up because it uses the exact same configuration and workflow that has already been created. The only difference is that production target tokens are used for reporting and notification services are enabled for the environment. With Tesults, it's easy to make your team's life easier by consolidating your test automation reporting, analysis, manual test case management, and release checklist items in one place, and it's easier than you might think. Configuring your automated tests, for example, to work with Tesults takes only a couple of minutes. You do not need to make changes to your tests or perform any other configuration work within Tesults. Every release can take place with assurance and ease and ensure that your customers are receiving a high quality, robust build while reducing your production fires and supporting costs. Get started with Tesults today. Release high quality software every time.